I've been a little bit frustrated over the past few days watching everyone talk on the internet about the new Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K. And I shouldn't be surprised. I shouldn't be surprised that people are so negative and dismissive of the new camera. Honestly, going into it, I was so in full disclosure, I've had the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K and the 6K Pro, and I really love the 6K Pro. I think it's an amazing camera. I've been using it on several documentary features that I'm shooting right now, and I'm getting ready to shoot a documentary narrative film this upcoming summer. And me and my business partner we're looking at, okay, what camera are we going to use for that feature film? And I know I can shoot it on our 6K Pro. We're eyeing the 12K, the Ursa Mini 12K. We think that'd be a fantastic camera, especially because we want to be able to do some virtual production in the future, and we think that really high resolution will work well for those sorts of projects. And so we're looking at that, and then we would use the 12K as the A cam, and then the 6K Pro as the B cam. So I was hoping that with these announcements, Blackmagic might announce something that would work really well for this next project that we're getting ready to shoot. And I was surprised with what they announced. They went through all the broadcast stuff, and then they got to the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K, dropping pocket, putting the emphasis on cinema. And at first I was a little bit underwhelmed, like I'm sure a lot of people were. It's the same body for the camera I already have. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's the same except for two huge differences, which is that it's a brand new sensor that is full frame, but on specs it looks like it will perform the same as the previous cameras in terms of dynamic range and whatever, except it's full frame, it can shoot open gate, which are things I'd always kind of dismissed in the past, because I was shooting on a Super 35 sensor and I was like, whatever, I don't care. I mean, a lot of great Hollywood films are shot Super 35, so what do I care about this full frame, whatever. I felt like people were kind of blowing it out of proportion. And then I started looking at some of the footage, and particularly, I know I've got a laser projector here, and the way it's scanning is showing weird on the camera right now, but this was the shot that made me stop and think, maybe there's something to this full frame thing. Now, so this is how my thought process happened. So I watched the announcement. We're kind of expecting L mount. That was in the rumors. Full frame wasn't really in the rumors. Using the same body style. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because you watched Blackmagic over the last several years. They keep using the same body styles. Like it shouldn't be a surprise that they wanted to keep the same thing. But the thing that really made me start to think was that they kept the price so incredibly low that it's $2,595 US. And then I was like, this camera that can now shoot full frame, and a lot of the movie I'm going to be shooting has two big things. One, big mountain vistas like this, and really tight spaces in a cabin in the mountains. And I was thinking, okay, not having that crop on my lenses, because we have a set of Zine lenses, not cropping in on that would be great. And then having so much detail in the shadows, especially for these big mountain vistas we're going to shoot. Like, that really started to make me think maybe I don't need to go out and spend $5,000-$6,000 on an Ursa when I can just get one of these for half the price. I can still use my 6K Pro as B cam, and I can run 2 cameras at the same time. I already have all the kit to outfit it, and then maybe with the money that I saved, I can go out and buy an Easy Rig Minimax or something like that. And so I've been thinking long and hard about this, and I was really excited. So I watched that, and then the first thing I do is I start looking at all the other videos, and I see that Flo of Two Lands, who shot this, who I've been following for years, and who's very active in the Blackmagic forums online, that he got early access to the camera. So I'm watching his footage, and I'm like, this is amazing what I'm looking at here. And then I see that Matteo Bertoli also got early access, and I've been following him for even longer than Flo. And this is beautiful, beautiful footage. And I'm very familiar with each of their opinions. Matteo, he's very clear and frank. He doesn't care about autofocus. He doesn't care about a lot of these things that people care about when they complain about products on the internet, because he uses these products, he goes out and he shoots, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care about rolling shutter. He doesn't care about this because he's not shooting sports. But like an example he brought up in a live stream he did this week was, I shot a car commercial for Mercedes and it was fine. He shoots lots of little short commercial style docs, and they're fine. No one complains. He has a 12K and he's got 6K or 6K Pro. I'm not sure which model he had. And he has a nice set of lenses that he pairs with him, but he's also very good at what he does. And he does not care one bit. In fact, he often says, this competes with, Alexa in terms of the footage. And he consistently says over and over again, yeah, they say it's 13 stops, but I think it's more. That's what he says, and he said it for years. My personal experience, I've been shooting 2 narrative feature docs right now. One is of a muralist, and we've shot a lot of footage at night. And so I've been able to test what I'm able to do with the 6K Pro at night. And we're shooting on Xenon lenses, and they have beautiful bokeh in the background with lamp lights, and it's doing pretty great in the dark with our footage. Is this guy just out at night, painting murals with a projector, to outline what he does, because it's the easiest way for him to do what he does. So we've been able to shoot it in all sorts of conditions. Now, I will say I do like the internal NDs. It really makes my life easier for when I shoot. But I'm also shooting it rigged out with a battery, like a V-mount battery and other things. And so I've seen how Matteo holds it in his cameras, and he'll kind of hug it and then, use the eyepiece or whatever. And so I've been doing that, and I've been really happy with the footage that we've gotten. So I'm shooting Blackmagic handheld, but it's rigged out and it gets heavy. But I'm shooting a dock, and sometimes takes are very, very long. It's hard to hold that for 14 minutes for a take as I'm interviewing someone. But I've done it, and I'm happy with it. I know it's a challenging thing to shoot. The other documentary I'm working right now, it takes place on a ranch, and we have these big, beautiful vistas, and we've gone out and we shot at sunset, and I'm starting to see just how far I can push my 6K Pro in a couple different ways, in 2 very different style documentary features that we're working on. And I'm really, really happy with it. Would I prefer a box camera? I don't know. I think, a little bit tighter rig with some better I/O, whatever, would be better, yeah. But then I look at the cost of the camera and what I'm able to get without having to save up forever to get new equipment. I know a lot of people badmouth the Blackmagic cameras, like, you know, this is not what professionals use. I don't care what they're using. I'm not buying it for them. I'm getting it for me. So what do I care about what I'm doing? And I think that's the important thing is, okay, are you happy with what it does? And I'm incredibly happy. And seeing that now, I might be able to use it with a full frame sensor. And I don't know that I have to save up for the 12K because I see, man, I think it could do everything I want. And if all I have to do is get an L mount to EF adapter so that I can use my Zine lenses on it, if that's all I have to do, then I'm really tempted. And yet, almost every single video I'm seeing online, people are just complaining, well, it's not what you expected. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it's not what you expected. But all I can say is this. I don't know what you need in a camera, but I know this. I'm incredibly happy with the footage I'm getting off my camera. I love editing B-RAW in DaVinci Resolve. It looks better than it should. We're constantly amazed at how much dynamic range it has. So I don't feel like I'm pushing up against 13 stops and thinking, man, it'd be great if I had 16 or 17. Yeah, I know what 16 or 17 costs. Way more than what I'm paying for this camera. Would I love a camera that has 16, 17 stops of dynamic range? Yeah, but honestly, I don't know that I'm using all the stops I currently have in my camera. It's pretty incredible what it's able to do already. So this is kind of what I think. Do I think that this camera is for beginners? Anyone who's willing to learn how to shoot manual focus, willing to learn how to edit and grade their own footage, like say a film student, I think this is an amazing choice. I don't know that this is good for every YouTuber or social media person, though it can do that if you're willing to learn it. I have a friend who's revamping his YouTube channel right now, and I think he needs an autofocus system. So we're looking at him getting an FX30 because it's the right thing for what he needs to do, because he needs to be able to turn it on and walk away. But if you're able to be behind the camera, maybe you consider something like this, because it's incredibly affordable and the image it produces is fantastic. So I don't know, I think some of these people who want to give their 2 cents on the internet, you know, like I get it. Everyone has an opinion. I have an opinion. You have an opinion. But if you're behind the camera and you're not shooting action, I think you can learn to live without autofocus, right? Action's really hard. I've shot a lot of different event photography. I do narrative, I do docs, and shooting docs is challenging because you can't necessarily control the action in front of the camera. But when you know your system, you know, and you understand the subject that you're covering, you have to anticipate it no matter whether you've got autofocus or not. And I think we've been able to do pretty good so far. I don't know. I think some people are blowing some of these specs out of proportion, and they're looking at specs because no one denies just how incredible the image is. They get hung up on the other stuff, and like, that's okay. You know? Don't buy the camera if it's not for you. But if you've never used a Blackmagic camera before, I don't know that some of these things are as important as some people make them out to be. I don't know. If you need autofocus, don't look at Blackmagic. But if you can take it a little bit slower, especially if you're shooting narrative, Okay, if you're shooting a narrative project and you're a student, just use this. But I don't think you even have to be a student to appreciate this. And that's what a lot of people look at. It's like, this is a stepping stone. I don't know that you have to ever really go past this, because you can get a beautiful image, 13 stops, whatever it actually is. You can shoot it in 12K, or sorry, you can shoot this in 6K, full frame, open gate. And most places that you're going to deliver a narrative feature to, they're still only taking it in 1080p. So I know some people be a little like, oh, you shoot 120 in 1080p, like who's using that anymore? Someone's shooting a narrative feature, because most of these streaming platforms aren't even accepting it in 4K. So, I mean, a lot of these masters, you master to 1080p. Like right now, I plan on mastering these current projects in 4K just to future-proof them a little bit. But unless you're delivering to YouTube, most of these places can't take higher than 1080p anyway. Blu-ray isn't above that unless you've got a 4K Blu-ray, which anyone self-distributing probably isn't doing that. A lot of people are still doing DVD, and DVD is nowhere even close to it. So I think we get caught up in maybe the wrong things with some of these projects. And, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I just don't get too caught up in negative reviews unless it's relevant to how you are going to use the camera. If you're going to shoot a doc where you can ask someone to repeat what they're doing, you don't need autofocus. If you're shooting a narrative feature where you're directing and you can ask your actors to repeat, you don't need autofocus. And then you can really take advantage of some of these other things. And, if you don't like the shape and the body of the camera, yeah, that's a good point. But the alternative is you get a really wide, beautiful screen, which you just don't get on other devices unless you add a monitor somewhere else. And if that's the case, yeah, you would have paid extra for that anyway. But that monitor, it's worth $500. So now the camera's $2,000. And then you go on from there, and it's almost impossible to compete with. But price aside, an incredible full frame camera, record in 6K in an impressive codec. They're going to give you the software that's probably worth, $300, honestly, and you continue to update and maintain that license, and essentially indefinitely. You'll get like 2 seats for your DaVinci Resolve Studio license. So I don't know, it's probably worth $600 now in software. I mean, it's really hard to, I'm saying that wrong. It's really easy to overlook if you're like, well, such and such company says 14 stops or 15 stops. And that's great. But you look at this, you see shadows and highlights, and do you think that needs more dynamic range? It's not like he's got, he went and diffused the whole landscape. Like, this is completely natural. And, sure, he's shooting in golden hour and whatever. But, yeah, it's a beautiful shot. Lots of detail in the shadows. We're not clipping in the highlights. Incredible detail over distance. This is a really good looking shot. I saw this shot and I was like, I need to think about this camera. And, I don't know. If these are use cases that make sense for you, maybe it's worth it to you too.